Hi everyone, the following is a video tutorial for how to create your very own tea light jack-o'-lantern. Here I have on the screen an example that I was just messing around with. Actually, I have two examples to start off and just completely different shapes. And that's the beautiful thing about this type of project is you really get a chance to put some creativity and personality into your design and come up with something unique that you would like, just as if you were carving a real pumpkin around this time of year. And so in order for us to go ahead and get started, I just wanted to review a couple of different things about how we go about making this design. So if I take this all the way back to the beginning, when we get started, I just make a sketch, and that sketch is just the outside core of what is going to make up the shape for our jack-o'-lantern, for the pumpkin. And notice that the stem is incorporated into that as well. I have a spline here that creates a really nice organic kind of flow around the outside contour of the shape. And then down here we have a flat portion, which will be how we get a good print base when we send this over to the 3D printer, and also provide a base for us to sit on top of the tea light. Eventually towards the end here, you'll see we'll make a hole in the bottom for the light to fit through. So in any case, this is the form, the shape, the sketch that we then revolve. So the next step was to revolve that 360 degrees to create our hollowed out shape. Next, I made a plane out in front of that area. If I rotate the pumpkin here, you can see I created a plane out in front here. And on that plane, I created another sketch, and that sketch incorporated the facial features. And so I tried messing around with text and got a few different weird errors. And with text, it's really tricky too because you're not able to support some of the different cutouts, like for the letter D and B and things like that, unless, of course, you use like a stencilized font. But in any case, for this jack-o'-lantern project, I would advise just going with some type of facial feature and stay away from the text options that we have here within sketch mode. But in either way, here I made my facial features with the polygon tool and made a triangular eyeball, a nose, and using the line tool and the arc tool, made the shape that you see down here for the mouth. And then I have this line right down the center. If I square up on front of the cube here, I have this line down the center, and I actually mirrored over my left eye to the right and the left side of the mouth to the right. The triangle I ended up placing on center with the line there, and so I just had that one from the get-go. But after creating that sketch, I went ahead and extrude cut that backwards into the form, into the revoluted hollowed out part, and you can see now how we do have like a very nice shell going on inside of there. And then after that, the last step was to use the hole feature that you see up here on the menu bar. And the hole feature, if I rotate towards the bottom here, just gave us a real nice cleared out opening. Again, we do have this base here that'll help get a nice adhesion to the print bed when we send this over to the 3D printer, and then a gap inside of there to have the light sit inside and glow nice through whatever face you put on the front of it. So let me go ahead and start from the beginning. To get started, I'm going to go up here and select File and click New Design. First thing is I'm going to create a sketch on this back surface. And so for this sketch, there are only two dimensions that I really want to make sure that you all have be very specific. And it's going to be this base dimension and the height dimension here. And so if I just click back over to my example that I was showing you on the sketch, sketch number 1, you can see here the overall height that we want to shoot for is around 1.5 inches. And this base width is going to be 0.625. Another dimension worth noting here was the offset, which came in at 0.05. And then the stem was really just drawn in organically, so no specific dimensions for the stem. So let's head back over, and I'm going to get the line tool. Always use the origin when beginning to construct a part. Click on the origin, I'll go straight up from there, get my alignment going, and then type on the keyboard 1.5 inches. And then if I just click on my mouse to specify next point, it'll allow me to keep drawing here. But in fact, I'm actually going to go to the bottom and start again. So I hit escape on my keyboard, grab the line tool, go back to the origin, click, drag out to the right this time, and type that number 0.625. At this point, I'm just going to zoom in and grab this dimension tool, or the dimension itself, and drag it down out of the way. Next, I'm going to grab my spline feature, and starting up here at the top, just gradually click and curve a really nice organic looking line. And it's okay if you don't get it at first, but basically connect down to the bottom here, hit the green check mark to finish. And as I was saying, it's okay if you don't get it at first, because now we have the option to drag on these points and move them around and further finesse them into position. So feel free to have some fun with this and get really funky and bumpy if you need to, or if you like to. Ultimately, I'm just going to go for a really nice curved outside shape. Something like this should be fine. And then before we move on here, what I would like to do is do an offset. Select this entire profile and give it a value of 0.05. That's going to give us a very nice hollowed out space inside of the jack-o'-lantern so that the light can glow, and also reduce the amount of plastic that we need to use in order to build our final product. So 0.05 for the offset. Then I'm going to grab my line tool, and up here at the top, just clicking on this top point and extending it up another 0.2, 0.1, 0.3, it doesn't really matter. Kind of just fit this in as you see fit. Drag out to the side here, and then connect it back down to the shape, to the curvature, to that spline that we have going on. To finish this off, we just have to clean this up a little bit. And what we want to do is grab our extend tool. And I'm going to highlight this line and extend it out towards this center point, center line. Down at the bottom, do the same thing, extend this out to the left. Now I'm going to go back and use my trim tool here. And I want to cut out all of the interior portions of the line that I don't need anymore. And so there, with 1, 2, 3 clicks, got rid of all my overlapping lines that I don't want. And I'm just left with one continuous path that will create the sketch for the revolution that we'll do next. So finish sketch from here. Next, I'm going to go to revolve. It pre-selected it for me because it's the only sketch available right now. Later on, when you have multiple sketches, you will have to select it first. And then the next option is to select the axis in which you want to revolve around. So I'm just going to grab up here by the stem, this center line. You can see after selecting that, it goes ahead and creates the form for me. Just going to create an angled view here. And what's kind of neat is you can grab this node and drag it around and actually see what your part would look like at each one of these angled intervals. And of course, what we want to do is go for a 360 full enclosure. Over here, options, you can see angle the value again here, angle type, you can say 2 or full. Direction, one-sided, two-sided, symmetrical. You can play with the values and play with how much you want to rotate it in each direction. And then you can also have a couple of choices here, join, cut, intersect, new body, and new component. With this being the first solid model in the file, the default is new body. Next, I want to create a plane out in front of one of our origin planes. So I'm going to go to construct and select offset plane. And here you can see the 3 origin planes are highlighted. I'm going to select that back one, the same one we made our sketch on initially. And I'm just going to give it a distance of 1.25 inches away. Just need it out in front of the shape. If your curvature of your sketch ended up coming out further than 1.25, it's okay. Just get the sketch plane out in front. Say okay. Then create a sketch on that new plane. And here's where we're going to make our facial features. I do like to use the mirror tool and get a real nice symmetrical look. So I'm going to grab the line tool here, click on the origin, and just drag this up through the part, and that's going to be my mirror line later on when I'm done with my sketch. And then you can just play around here with the line tool, rectangle, circle. If you hold down create, you'll see arc, polygon. You can use this to make triangles. So here, I'll show you that. Doesn't matter which one of these you use. I'm just going to grab the first one and click anywhere to get a decent position going. And then as I drag out, you can enter in a dimension. And if I hit tab on my keyboard, move over to specify how many points or how many sides I want within this polygon. So I'm going to give it 3 and then just kind of click randomly to create the shape that I want. I'll do the same thing here with the polygon tool for a nose. I like a nice triangle nose on my jack-o'-lantern. I'm just going to drag up, get on the center line, so that's nice and centered. And then to make my face, one option that you can use is to start with an arc and go with a 3-point arc. You can click anywhere here on this middle line, anywhere out here to the left, and then you have a third click. That's why it's a 3-point arc. 1, 2, 3 points, 3 clicks, and create a curve. And then do another one down here at the bottom to the center line. And if you don't like how it comes in, you can always click and drag on these lines. That's the nice thing with Fusion here, is it allows for free form modeling, as we saw highlighted in one of the tutorial videos when we got started. From there, I'm going to use the line tool again and just kind of draw in some jagged looking teeth. So I'll click anywhere here along my bottom curve, meet it here in the middle, and then continue that kind of randomly all the way up the curve. Let's see how many I can fit in here. And then just repeat that process here on the top. Again, there's no wrong way to do this type of work. There's no wrong way to carve a pumpkin either. So have fun with it as you go. Okay, and then what I'm going to do before I move on is just trim out the overlapping lines here. Because all I really need here is that jagged pattern to cut into the face to create the mouth. And next, I'm going ahead and mirror. When I click on the mirror option, you can select different lines to add one at a time, or you can click and drag and select multiple lines at once. I ended up having 42 lines selected out of all that. And then next, I just have to select my mirror line, the one we put on here first. And you say okay, and you can see it flips over to the other side perfectly, all done for us, nice and symmetrical. Finish the sketch. Next, I'm going to extrude this in through the part. Select all of these enclosed shapes. And then for this, normally I would know a specific value that I wanted to use, but again, we're kind of making an organic shape and feature here, and carving jack-o'-lanterns, same business. So if I just grab this arrow, I can just drag it in. You can actually see as it cuts into the part how it's going to make an impact. So if you want, you could even play it short and just make little cuts in and have big angles to it. That'd be kind of cool. Or you can go all the way through. You know, at a certain point, once you reach the midpoint of this, you're not going to be making any more of an impact. I suppose you could blow it out the backside too, which would be interesting, different way of using it. You know what? I've actually haven't done one like that before. So I'm going to blow it all the way through and have that face on both sides. How about it? Say okay. Now the last thing to do is add a hole and just have some fun with changing the appearances around. So I'm going to go ahead and select on the hole feature. I could make a sketch, put a circle on it, extrude, cut that away, but that's kind of the cheap way of going about doing that type of feature. So if you have a special feature for making a hole, why not use it, right? I have this hole feature here. And I'm just going to go ahead and rotate towards the bottom and start by selecting the face that I want to make the hole on, which would be this bottom surface. Next, I have to establish the concentric reference. And then you can see there's a slew of options here for different hole types, countersink, counter bore, different ways of tapping the hole, adding threads to it. But if you want a flat bottom hole or an angled hole, I'm just going to go simple, simple, and flat with this. For the cut distance of the hole, really just need to go through the bottom base of it. 1/4 inch will do just that. For the diameter of it, we're going to set it to 1 inch. Say OK. Now you have the hole in the base. Now we're starting to see how this is looking like a jack-o'-lantern. The light will fit inside of there and glow through our openings. Last thing is to have some fun here with appearances. And if you go to the appearance panel, which I have here on the sidebar, and you type in the color brown or orange, what you're going to notice is I really don't have a nice brown here. What you're seeing is something that I created as my own material because brown wasn't in my library as a default. So I added it as a favorites. I'll go and show you how to do this next. The only two browns that were in the program were light brown and weathered, which really is not dark enough for like a stem feature. So, and just a quick point of reference, if you search orange, there's no orange in here at all. This was one that I had to create and add as well. So in order to make your own appearances, if there are none, which is just a coincidence because there's a lot of other colors in the program ready for us to use, and I'll show you a few of them here just in a second, but orange and brown, the two that we need for this project, not in there as a default, very odd. So go down here underneath modify and select manage materials. And then down here, you'll see a little sphere with a plus symbol. That's to create a new material. And there's a bunch of different options here that you can use. I usually just go for plastic or wall paint, just simple kind of finishes and looks to it. But you can have some fun with all these different options as well. I'm just going to go with plastic because I made a wall paint earlier and I might as well make a different one. So I'll go ahead and select plastic this time and just change the name and call it, instead of default plastic, orange. And you can select solid, transparent, or vinyl. I'm just going to leave it as solid. And then here for color, you can either do this the old-fashioned way and just kind of randomize the color and get something that's close to what you think you want. But you'll notice that there's specific values down here as you move this around. These are called the RGB values, and this is something that you can look up. These 3 sets of 3 digits are specific to every single color that's available. And there's also a short, they call it HTML or a hex code that you can type in for these specific colors. So for orange, I'll just pull up a different tab here real quick. For orange, if you type in orange RGB value, and of course there's different types of oranges, but if you just go for a standardized approach, this is the 3 different values you could type in for RGB, or you could just take this code and bring that in down here. Paste that in. This is the most standardized color for orange. I'll say OK. Finish. A couple options for that: polish, glossy, or matte. Different things here you can play around with, texturizing it, creating patterns in it, and tinting it in different ways. A whole bunch of different options that you can mess with here. I'm just going to go ahead and say apply and add that as a favorites. And now I will have that across all of the files that I create from here on out, which is a really nice feature. We had something similar to this in Autodesk Inventor, but it was within the one document or the one file that you created the color. So essentially, every time you needed that specific material color, you had to create it again within that file. This is nice that it will transcend through all the rest of the files that you create. Okay, moving on, I'm going to go ahead and create a brown while I'm here. Do BROWN plastic, change the color over to brown. I have the RGB value here for that and the HTML code or the hex code. I'm going to add this down below. Once you have the color selected, say apply, and we should have two different colors that we can use now on the model. So I'm going to close this window, go back to modify here, pull up appearance, and then you can research for it by keyword. You can look through all the different folders that are here within the Fusion 360 Appearances library. Later on, we can get into adding ones to your appearances here, but for now, I have these favorites that I just created on the other menu, and you can either add them to the design or simply drag them right out here into the space and apply them. There's two different ways to do that. You can do the whole body or you can do specific faces. So for the whole body, I would want to grab this orange color and make the whole thing orange, and then switch this over to faces, grab brown, and just do the stem part there and the cap of it. And then I do want to use black because it'll really help this whole thing stand out on screen. So I'm going to search for black, and you'll see there's lots of different black colors in here. There's a nice plastic glossy one that I will add to the design here, and then drag inside the shell. There's a couple other surfaces I can add to that, and it's really going to help it pop on screen. Sometimes that you have trouble getting the right selection, but it's just based on your position and your rotation. So if you kind of maneuver it around and try again, eventually you can get it to highlight for you just like that. And then I'll do one down inside the face right there. See another example of how I just can't get it based on how I'm looking at it. So if I move this right through the eyeball, there we go. All right, and you can do it to all the surfaces here within the face too if you really want to take the time, and that does also help add to making it stand out. But here's our finished product, looking pretty sweet. We can screenshot this, we can upload this to different websites and embed it onto our portfolios later on. But this will be a quick little project for us for the week of Halloween coming up. Okay, so when you're getting ready to save this file, because we haven't even saved it yet, I want to make sure that you're under the team space for our class and not under your single user storage space. So make sure you're under the team space. Then we'll go File and click Save. And just check the location. Make sure it's in the project folder that I have set up for us here called T-Light Jack-O-Lantern. And what I want you to do is put your first name and last name as the very beginning part of your file entry. And then you can just say T-Light Jack-O-Lantern or Jack-O-Lantern, however you want to spell that out. But most importantly, have your name in there so that when I download them, I know whose I'm printing, and then I can get them passed out to you more efficiently. So save that into our team folder. Theoretically, I should be able to access that then later on. And in fact, how about this? I'm going to change the folder. Let's go back here and rename this to, say, Turn In folder. That way we know exactly what this one is for. This is your turn in folder. And when you get to that point, you should see mine in there and everybody else's once they get going. Hope you have fun with this. Happy Halloween, everybody. See you next time.